Israel is celebrating Hanukkah, and Jews all over the world are lighting candles to remember the great miracles that God has done for them in the days of old and also in our times today. The Hanukkah holiday is celebrated with lots of joy as families get together to light the Hanukkahs for 8 days. The festival spreads light and joy to everyone around. This year, the first night of Hanukkah was marred by the news of a horrible massacre that took place in Sydney, Australia. On Sunday evening, at the famous Bondi Beach, 2 terrorists opened fire on a Hanukkah event where around 1,000 people from the Jewish community in Sydney were celebrating the first night of the holiday. The attack lasted around 8 minutes and claimed the lives of 15 people, most of them Jews, and more than 40 people were wounded in the attack. Here's what happened. At roughly 6:40 p.m., the terrorists, who turned out to be a father and son, parked their car on the curb near the event and exited the vehicle with their weapons. A video just surfaced that shows an older couple who were walking by the vehicle immediately confronted the terrorist. The gentleman tackles the older of the terrorists, managing to get his rifle away from him. The video ends there and before we can see what happens next, but later, unfortunately, videos show 2 bodies laying next to the terrorist vehicles. These heroes gave their lives trying to save others from the attackers before the attack even began. At 6:42 p.m., the terrorists then proceed to a high point on a small bridge that overlooks the area where this Hanukkah event was taking place. They start shooting at Jews in the event. The older terrorist then goes down into the actual event and starts shooting Jews point blank. The younger of the terrorists, who stayed on the bridge almost the entire shooting, repeatedly throughout the attack gestures to bystanders behind him to get back and out of the way, clearly indicating that the terrorists were only interested in killing Jews and no one else. Meanwhile, another hero arrives on the scene. Taking cover behind a vehicle and sneaking up on the terrorist, a 40-year-old fruit shop owner waits until the terrorist turns his back to him and then runs and tackles the terrorist, wresting his rifle away from him. He then points the rifle at the terrorist but doesn't shoot. The terrorist then moves away from the bystander and rejoins his son back on the bridge, where he grabs another rifle and continues his rampage of death. The hero with the confiscated rifle places the gun behind a tree and a moment later is shot in the shoulder by the other terrorist from the bridge. At around 6:47 p.m., 7 minutes into the attack, the older of the terrorists is finally shot and killed by the police, and a minute later, the other terrorist is also shot at least twice, but manages to survive. These 2 terrorists, whose names we will not glorify to the world, had bombs in their vehicle, as well as, interestingly enough, and no surprise to many of us, 2 ISIS flags in the vehicle. While the identities and the origins of the 2 men are still under investigation, both of them recently traveled to the Philippines on an Indian and Australian passport. The man who attempted to stop the terror attack and was wounded in the process has been identified as Ahmed Al-Ahmed, the owner of a fruit shop in the city of Sydney, and is being rightfully praised all over the world as a hero. He is recovering from his injuries in the hospital. Prayers on his behalf would be appreciated. The 15 deceased victims of this horrific attack included 2 Chabad rabbis, a Holocaust survivor, and a 10-year-old girl. And this is just the latest deadly attack that has been committed against Jews around the world in recent days. We'll get into a few of those attacks and their devastating consequences in just a second, but first, if you're a Christian who believes in standing with the nation of Israel, I've got something important that I want to tell you. In 2025, we here at the Israel Guys have reached over 20 million people with the message of Israel. We have been privileged to bring in nearly 200 volunteers to the mountains of Israel's heartland to connect them with the events of the Bible unfolding right before their eyes. We are privileged to get to put our hands in the soil, to sweat on behalf of the restoration of the land of Israel. But this task takes more than just sweat. Our operations cost money. The videos we produce, the heavy machinery, the equipment, the operating costs, it all costs something. If you believe in the covenant that God made with Israel, if you believe that God has a plan for the Jewish people to prosper in their land, if you believe that the mountains of Israel should be restored and reclaimed for Israel, then join us. We have generous donors who are willing to match any gift given through the end of December. So anything you give will be doubled for twice the impact. When you put directly into the building up of the land of Israel, it means more trees, more vines, more cattle, more sheep, more flourishing Jewish communities being built up in the land of Israel. To make a real difference today in the land of Israel, just go to theisraelguys.com/double, or easier yet, click that link down in the description below. Just a day before the horrific attack at Bondi Beach, there was a shooting at Brown University in Rhode Island. On Saturday, during a final exam review for the economics class of a Brown University professor, a shooter, apparently with a handgun, opened fire, killing 2 people and injuring 9. It is most definitely not a coincidence that this professor just happens to teach Jewish studies courses as well. Public statements from different officials have claimed that they are not sure what the motives were for this attack, but it seems pretty clear to me. The rise in, we won't even call it anti-Semitism, we'll call it what it actually is, and that is straight up Jew hatred. FBI Director Kash Patel said on Sunday morning that the Bureau, the U.S. Marshals Service, and local police had detained a person of interest in a hotel room in Coventry, Rhode Island, based off a lead by the Providence, Rhode Island Police Department. Ivanka Trump put out, I thought, a very fitting statement. She said, quote, "As Jews around the world gather around our menorahs on this first night of Hanukkah, we are reminded how desperately the world needs more light, more Kiddush Hashem," which means the sanctification of God's name. On the same day, in a different part of the world, there were protests outside Amsterdam's Royal Concert Hall before a series of Hanukkah concerts that were supposed to take place there, which included a performance from the IDF's chief cantor. They were protesting what they called Israel's genocide in Gaza. As these attacks take place, it is a stark reminder as to the days that we are currently living in. These attacks clearly show that the world has not learned the lessons of October 7th, which happened just not long ago. The world has forgotten the lessons of the Holocaust. They have forgotten the lessons of the last 2,000 years of persecutions of the Jewish people. Some people may ask why these Jews were brutally shot and murdered at Bondi Beach. Was it because of their political views? No. Was it because they were Israeli? Some were, but most of them were not. Was it because of their religious views? Frankly, no. They were killed simply because they were Jews. How do these massacres even happen? Well, it starts with conspiracy theories about how the Jews are behind everything evil in the world, like the Jews control the banks, the Jews control the media, the Jews invented pornography, the Jews are killing children in Gaza. These straight up lies lead to anti-Semitic bias against Jews. That bias leads to hatred for Jews, and that hatred for Jews leads to murderous attacks against the Jewish people. Already since the attack in Australia, voices have come out online accusing Israel of staging the attack for propaganda purposes. My question is how obvious can the state of our world be? If you have any knowledge of history, you can see it happen time and time again. History repeats itself. And if we don't learn the lessons of history, how will we know when we need to stand up and speak out on behalf of the Jewish people? Let me tell you guys, right now is the time to stand up. Right now is the time to speak out. Right now is the time to put your faith in God and the Bible and your support for Israel to action. Put those words into action. We are living in a time when Jews are attacked daily across the world simply for being Jews. If we as Christians do not stand up and defend our Jewish brothers and sisters right now, then our children and grandchildren will be left wondering the same thing that the generations after World War II were left wondering. Why didn't our parents and grandparents stand up? Why did not the Christian church defend and support the Jews? What do these attacks mean for Israel? Hopefully, it means that Israel will be seeing a lot more Jewish people make aliyah and return home to the Jewish state, where the highest priority is protecting the Jewish nation. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has already called for the Jews of Australia to emigrate to Israel because it is no longer safe for Jews in Australia. Here in Israel, the entire nation is standing with the Jewish community of Australia, grieving with the families of the victims. On the Temple Mount, in a move of support and solidarity for the Jews of Australia, a Levitical choir sang the final verse of Ma'ut Sor, which is traditionally sung on Hanukkah. This is especially powerful and moving, as for the first time in centuries, Jews are now allowed to sing again on the Temple Mount. Despite the darkness and the evil in the world, attacks that are happening against Jews everywhere, redemption is happening in Israel. The Jewish people are back in the land, and their light is shining brightly from Zion. Guys, that's all for today. Don't forget to go to theisraelguys.com/double to make a real difference in the land of Israel today, or click the link in the description below. As always, thanks for watching.